Every band had a theme song 50, 60 years ago, and that was the Ralph Zarnow's theme song. He played it before every dance and used it frequently throughout his lifetime. Ralph was from Des Moines, born and raised. He graduated from North High School in 1932. Incidentally, one of his classmates and friends in that North High School class of 32 ended up being my father. That was my first connection with Ralph. But Ralph, after high school, started playing in various clubs, trumpet and drums, the Kit Kat Club, the Casaloma, places like that, and attending classes at Drake University. And before too long, World War II came along, and about that time, he found himself playing at Babe's with all the wax and everybody. He said it was a grand time every night, and they actually did a big production when Ralph was drafted. They drafted him right off of the stage at Babe's restaurant. Came up, read the letter, greetings from the president, and he left right from Babe's, got right on the bus, and they took him right to Fort Bliss, Texas. And while he was in the service, they placed him in the entertainment division, and he ended up directing bands and providing music for a lot of events in the service. But once the service years were over and the war ended, he came back to Des Moines and picked up where he left off, playing in various clubs. And Irving Grossman asked him if he would join the Grossman Entertainment Agency at that time, which Ralph did. And then in 1949, Ralph broke on his own and formed the Zarnow Entertainment Service. And about that time, he was also asked to do a radio program as a Ralph Zarnow radio show. And on it, he sang and talked, and his band played. As I was cleaning things out at his house, I found this oversized 78 RPM record. And on it was a recording of his very first broadcast that he did in July of 1949. The first song he ever did was this song we're going to open up with, called Everywhere We Go. Going to have Mel Rubin sing Ralph's part, back on the bass. Okay. Here's from Ralph's first radio program, Everywhere You Go.
Sunshine follow you everywhere you go, dear. Skies are always blue. Children love you, they seem to know. You bring roses out of the snow. Oh, world says hello everywhere you go. Seem to know you bring roses out of the snow. The whole world says hello everywhere you go.
Bravo!
Thank you.
Bring back any memories? Well, Ralph continued to become more popular all the time, playing for dances, and he opened every dance with the same song, kind of a smooth foxtrot. Everybody could get into dancing, and we're going to play that for you now. It's a medley of I'm Always Chasing Rainbows and Look for the Silver Lining. You know, going through Ralph's library, putting these tunes together is like walking back through time. You can see the songs that he played in the 30s and then the 40s. This next tune, I would guess, was written about 1953 when the movie by the same name by Doris Day became popular. It's on Moonlight Bay. I see some of you singing along out there. We're going to have some group vocals coming up. Stick around. Another favorite of Ralph's and the crowds, I think, is this next one. I'm Just Breezing Along with the Breeze. breezing along with the breeze. The rest of you can't see what I'm looking at up here. I feel like I'm in a Muppet movie. These people down here, they have blue shoes, white shoes, black shoes, and their feet are going back and forth like the Muppets would. That's okay, it's my wife. I can say things like that. Katie and Dorothy, your little feet are cute going back and forth. After playing foxtrots, Ralph would pick it up to kind of gauge the dancers, what they might want to hear, and this is one he frequently played called the Muscat Ramble. The tenor sax solo will be played by Dan Stevenson, who was a longtime member of Ralph's band. 25 years. Are you that old? Muscat Ramble. Muscat Ramble. Well, Ralph helped a number of musicians get their start in the music business. There was one gentleman, Ralph was sitting at his office one day and the phone rang and Ralph answered and said, hello, the guy introduced himself, said, my son is a piano player and he'd like to start playing professionally, but he has to join a union, the musicians union. In order to do that, he has to have a sponsor. Would you mind meeting with my son and seeing if you would sponsor him for his membership in the union? Ralph said, I'd be very happy to. Why don't you come on over to the office and we'll visit about it. What's your son's name? So my son's name is Louis Wirtz. So I came over to his office, and of course Louis Wirtz changed his name to Roger Williams, where Ralph sponsored him into his membership into the musicians union a number of years ago. And they remained close friends ever since. Actually, when Ralph died, the first one to call was a comedian by the name of Henny Youngman. The second person to call was Roger Williams, and my wife answered the phone. They visited for 20 or 30 minutes just reminiscing about things. But Ralph and Roger never lost contact with each other throughout their lifetimes. And of course, Roger Williams' big hit was that of Autumn Leaves. Frank Sebuhar on the piano. I started playing in Ralph's band in the early 60s. John, when did you start? You started about that time too. This is Ralph's original drummer, not from the 40s, but when I started playing. You look at it, you think maybe from the 40s, but no, he started about the 60s when I did too. Anyway, Ralph was always giving, as I mentioned, Roger Williams, people a chance. He frequently used vocal singers, girl singers, and a lot of them he found. He was a judge for Bill Riley's talent search on TV for years and years, and every once in a while he'd run across a little singer, and he found one in Linda Howard, and she sang with the band for a number of years. She was, I think, 14 years old, called her a little girl with a big voice, and she sang with the band for years. Then Shirley Heaver sang with the band for years. But frequently, Ralph would write the music for the band, so the entire band got to sing. And we're going to invite you to sing with us, too. And here's a song I think you all know. Mel's going to lead us with Bye Bye Blackbird. Chance now.
Pack up all my cares and woes, here I go, singing low. Bye, bye, blackbird. Where somebody waits for me, sugar sweet, so is she. Bye, bye, blackbird. No one here can love or understand me. Oh, what hard luck story they all hand me. Make my bed and light the light, I'll arrive late tonight. Blackbird, bye-bye. My bed and light the light, I'll arrive late tonight. Blackbird, bye-bye.
Good job. Your mouths were moving just right, doing the right words and everything. Well, nearly all of Ralph's music was written specifically for him. If you remember what the theme sounded like at the beginning, it went... That was his theme song. Well, a lot of his songs that was incorporated into it. Listen to the next song called Margie. If you notice, the introduction is a fast version of his theme song. So here's Ralph's arrangement of Margie. Piano came unplugged there for a minute. Right when we got to his big solo he practiced all week for. Gee, oh well. Ralph Zarnow Orchestra was actually what they called a tenor band. All the saxophones he used were tenors rather than altos and tenors and baritones like they had in the big band. That created a smaller big band that fit appropriately in hotels and smaller venues. Had kind of a smooth dancing sound to it. A lot of bands at that time, 50, 60, 70 years ago, were tenor bands, and that's what Ralph's was. Ralph had a sister, Sylvia Zarnow. Some of you might remember that name from years ago. Used to give dance lessons for adult education. Kind of dovetailed together very nicely. Whenever Ralph had a dance, Sylvia would just mention to her dance students that she's had over the years. They'd all show up and everybody had a good time. One of the songs that Ralph liked to play with his tenor band, kind of a smooth sounding, is this next one called Moonlight and Roses, followed by Whispering. Next in the medley will be Whispering. Well, in just a few years, Ralph was very popular throughout the state of Iowa. We played all of these Legion clubs, the Elks clubs, the Moose clubs, nearly every place. And he got a call from Webster City, said, "Mr. Zarnow, everybody here loves your band. We're going to have a special occasion. We'd like to have you come up and play." And Ralph said, "Oh, I'd be very happy to." He said, "Oh, good. We're going to really advertise it heavily, put signs all over town." And Ralph thought, "Wow, this is going to be great." So they signed the contract, and came the day to go up to Webster City, and as he drove into town, here on the big marquee was appearing tonight in person, Frank Zarnow and his orchestra. Throughout the years, I always made fun of Ralph with Frank Zarnow now. I kind of burst his bubble, I think. That was before my time, but I know a lot of people talk about that. Here's one song I remember Ralph singing and playing a lot. It's called "Last Night on the Back Porch." Anybody remember that one? Are these songs too old for you? They're going back before my time. But I remember Ralph was playing in the 40s and 50s and into the 60s and 70s. It was a few years ago. "Last Night on the Back Porch."
I loved her in the morning, and I loved her at night. Yes, I loved her when the moon and the stars were oh so bright. Yes, I loved her in the springtime, and I loved her in the fall. But last night on the back porch, I loved her most of all.
"Last Night on the Back Porch." Well, Ralph, as well as having a dance band, he was primarily a booking agent. He booked a number of big-name acts, frequently conventions. Ralph was known as the leading convention band and convention booker all over the state. And these are just some of the entertainers that I've played since I've been working with the Zarnow Entertainment. I know before my memory, he booked people like Johnny Carson, but he was on first-name basis with people like Bob Hope, Red Skelton, Sonny and Cher, Tennessee Ernie Ford, Liberace, The Carpenters, John Denver, Herb Schreiner, Dennis Day, of course Henny Youngman and Roger Williams, Bobby Rydell, Marilyn May, Myron Florin, Helen O'Connell, Victor Borga, Sandler and Young, Margaret Whiting, Carmen Cavallero, Ken Curtis, Jim Neighbors, Susan Anton, Florence Henderson, Bill Cosby. Those are the caliber of acts he booked. He would book the entertainers, and then he would hire the backup musicians, and we would produce a show for them, for everybody. And a lot of these people sent cards, and when Ralph passed away, he was remembered in the entertainment business throughout the United States. And there's one gentleman a few years ago. Gary, you ready? Ralph was playing at the Valor Ballroom right over here. Tom Archer was the owner, and Ralph was setting the band up, and Tom came out and said, "Ralph, why don't you come in here? I want you to meet somebody." And Ralph went into Tom's office and said, "Ralph, I want you to meet Larry Welk. His polka band's going to start playing for us here." And that was Ralph's first introduction to Lawrence Welk, who obviously came on and became very popular, but at that time he was just a polka band playing a circuit like Ralph was. And over the years, Ralph's path would cross with Lawrence Welk. I got to meet him through Ralph when he was appearing at the Iowa State Fair. Ralph always liked to play theme songs of his band leader friends, and we pulled this one out. See if you recognize it. Wait a minute, I got to start this right. Of course, that was Bubbles in the Wine. That was Lawrence Welk's theme song we got started. Ralph always did, as I mentioned, a salute to the big bands. We're going to do that now. As long as Gary was playing his trombone, we're going to put him to work right now. Going to do a medley of Tommy Dorsey songs. You do remember these songs. Starting off with I'm Getting Sentimental Over You. Gary White with our salute to the big bands, Tommy Dorsey Band. was Gary White on the trombone. Gary White. You got to remember, we didn't have a chance to rehearse these. We're playing these from 40 or 50 years ago. Here's one I hope they can remember. Going on to the next band leader is one of my favorites because he was a trumpet player. See if you can recognize him. That's right, that was Harry James, Cherryberry Bend. I got up out of my sick bed to come and play this tonight. This next one, of course, the biggest name big band from the big band era was that of Glenn Miller. Now, Ralph, as well as booking shows and dances and things, he would occasionally be called by other band leaders to help them fill out with musicians. Probably the biggest thrill of my life back in the early 1960s was when Glenn Miller Band came to town under the direction of Tex Beneke. They needed to pick up a few local players, and Ralph was able to put me in the Glenn Miller Band. I remember Bob Weiss, our trumpet player up here, sat right beside me and remember playing in Glenn Miller Band for the Iowa State Fair. Tex Beneke played sax and directed. Ray Eberly was the vocalist. The Modern Airs were on this show. It was really exciting for, I was just in my early 20s to be able to play that actual original music and see the pencil in marks, stand up here, sway to the left here, sway to the right. That was really an enjoyable time for me. Well, we put together a Glenn Miller medley I think you're going to enjoy. See how many of these songs you recognize from the Glenn Miller Band. 5,000. Pennsylvania 6, 5,000. Did you recognize all those songs from the Glenn Miller Band? I think you know most of them.
First one was Safety Patrol.
American Patrol, right. American Patrol was the first one. Well, Ralph produced a number of shows as well as dances, I mentioned. The one I wanted to tell you about, every December, John, I think you remember this when you were on the job with me, we'd go to Fisher Governor or Fisher Controls up in Marshalltown for their Christmas party. We'd do an afternoon show for the kids and the family and then a dance that night. Well, we were just finishing up with rehearsal, and Bill Fisher, who was the owner of the company, came up to Ralph and said, "Ralph, I have a check that every year I give to our employees organization to buy Christmas gifts for the kids and everything. I would like to make a presentation of that during the program sometime. Is there some time I can do that?" Ralph said, "Oh, you've solved a problem for me. We have a roller skating act. They have props. We need to get those props off. And then he's followed by a dog act. We need to get the things set for the dogs. So if you come on right after the roller skate act, that would be great. That would give us some time filler in there. We could get all the props changed." So it was all set. Boy, got in the show, but unbeknownst to Ralph, Bill Fisher went to Larry Thompson, the roller skate guy, and said, "Say, do you happen to have an extra roller skate? I think it'd be kind of clever if I just kind of roll right out on the stage after your act." And he said, "Well, sure, I'll fix you right up." So he got one roller skate on him. So Larry Thompson finished off, and Ralph introduced Bill Fisher. He started coming out kind of tentatively on one roller skate. Well, Ralph forgot to tell the dog act that there was another speaker before they came on. The lady with the dog act thought Ralph was introducing her, and she sent the dogs on. There were 10 dogs. They were turning flip-flops, somersaults in the air. This big English sheepdog just plowed right into Bill Fisher and sent him flying. The check went out to about the 4th row of the thing. Just knocked him down. The place was just bedlam. Okay, Bill was trying to get up, and the dog act realized that she sent him out too soon. So she whistled him back. They came back. I'll be darned if that big English sheepdog didn't knock him over again. Just knocked him flat. There was total bedlam for 6 or 7 minutes. You know, afterwards, people come up during the dance and say, "How did you ever rehearse that with Bill Fisher? That was the best part of the show." Those were fun times. There's Freeze going up to Marshalltown, that Coliseum. Remember that, John? You were there. Yeah. Here's one of Ralph's favorite songs, one called Just Because. We're going to put Mel Rubens back on the vocal.
Because you think you're so pretty, just because you think you're so hot, just because you think you got something that nobody else has got. You made me spend all my money. You laughed and called me old Santa Claus. I'm telling you, baby, I'm through with you. Because, just because.
Ralph continued producing and bookings throughout his life. He produced the Shrine Circus for 21 years. By produced, I mean he hired individually each act. He'd hire an elephant act, he'd hire a trapeze artist. It wasn't a self-contained show. He'd hire each individual act, put it together, arrange the music for it, and put on a unique show that just Des Moines, Iowa had. He did that for 21 years. For 23 years, he was the state fair band in the grandstand. We start playing in the morning. We didn't finish until the fireworks at night. He helped supply backup musicians for the entertainers that came in, and we played there for a number of years. We could tell what time of season it was by the songs we were playing, and this was one I remember in springtime had come out. Do you remember when the red, red robin comes bop, bop, bopping along? Well, here it is. Red Robin goes bopping along. Well, Ralph was very generous throughout his life. Going through his personal papers, I realized he had loaned money to a lot of friends over the years, and I know he helped us out. My wife and I are both teachers, and my wife would put on a musical school. He was always there. What do you need, Dan? You need any sound system? His sister Sylvie would help with the choreography of it, and he was just a very good friend. When my father died in 1975, Ralph kind of took me under his wing and became a surrogate father, and the last few years of his life we had a standing appointment that every Thursday evening I'd come in and we'd spend hours sitting in his office eating a piece of cake and reminiscing about all the events that happened in his lifetime. Ralph was very generous, as I mentioned. He left a lot of money to the Animal Rescue League to care for the dogs. He always had pets. Actually, as a matter of fact, the pet that he had when he died is still alive and sleeping beside me every night, unfortunately. He's a pretty old kitty cat by now. And he created the Zarnow Family Scholarship at North High School, where anybody going on to music from North has a scholarship. The bulk of his money he left to Bethel Jacob Synagogue, which is about 7 blocks that way, just on the other side of 63rd Street. Both of Ralph's grandparents were cantors at that synagogue years ago. And stipulation was he created a trust and named me as trustee, and we're to provide music for Bethel Jacob. So Ralph Zarnow's music lives on at his synagogue for years. I'm glad he left that. Anyway, Ralph was a wonderful person, and happy to have represented him. I appreciate your listening tonight. I think Flo's up here ready to... and while she's coming up, I might mention that Music Under the Stars starts this Sunday night, June 17th, on the west steps of the Capitol. It goes for 6 weeks. First 4 weeks will be the Des Moines Metro Band, followed by Jazz in July, and by the Veterans Band. So if you have a chance or opportunity, please come out. Sunday night starts at 7 o'clock for Music Under the Stars. Flo, take it away.